If you're over 60, every bite on your plate has a deeper impact than it once did. At this stage of life, your body responds differently, more sensitively to the foods you've eaten for decades. What once supported your strength may now quietly strain your heart. And this isn't about fast food or sugary treats. It's about the very vegetables many older adults believe are helping them vegetables you may have relied on your whole life. As a cardiologist with over 3 decades of experience treating older patients, I've seen it again and again. Seniors who take care of themselves. They eat salads, avoid fried foods, sip on green smoothies, and yet they show up in my office with shortness of breath, unexplained fatigue, irregular heart rhythms, or worse. The confusion is real. They're doing what they were told is healthy, but here's the reality. Not all vegetables are heart-friendly after 60. Some can interfere with medications. Others spike blood pressure or irritate an aging digestive system. Your metabolism is no longer the same, and what worked for you at 40 may now work against you. In this video, I'll take you through 9 vegetables that may be putting unnecessary strain on your heart, and the ones that can truly help you stay strong, balanced, and protected. Let's get started. Before we dive in, if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you hit that button and turn on the bell so you never miss another health tip made just for you. If you enjoy this video, type 1 in the comments. If not, type 0 to let me know how I can make better content for you. 1. French fries, America's favorite side dish that's quietly damaging senior hearts. Of all the foods woven into American tradition, few are as familiar as French fries. They've been a sidekick to burgers at backyard barbecues, a comfort food at church luncheons, and a quick fix at the diner down the street. For many older adults, fries feel like a harmless indulgentia treat, enjoyed in moderation, that surely doesn't do much harm. But after spending over 30 years treating older patients with heart issues, I can tell you plainly, French fries are anything but harmless, especially after 60. They may look simple, just sliced potatoes fried to a golden crisp, but under that familiar exterior is a cocktail of ingredients that puts enormous strain on the aging cardiovascular system. As we get older, our arteries naturally lose flexibility, blood pressure creeps up, and the body becomes less efficient at processing fats and clearing sodium. French fries are one of the worst offenders at exploiting those vulnerabilities. Let's start with the oils. French fries are typically deep-fried in highly processed, low-quality oils like soybean or canola, often reused over and over again in restaurants. These oils are high in omega-6 fatty acids and often contain trans fats, both of which fuel chronic inflammation throughout the body. That inflammation doesn't cause pain right away, but it quietly damages the lining of your arteries, making them more likely to trap cholesterol and form plaque. Over time, this can lead to atherosclerosis, narrowed arteries that choke off blood flow to your heart and brain. Then there's the salt. A single serving of fries can contain hundreds of milligrams of sodium, sometimes up to 800 depending on the size and seasoning, and no one sticks to just one serving. People share them, finish what's left in the bag, or snack absent-mindedly while talking. For someone over 60, that extra sodium isn't just bloating. It raises blood pressure, worsens fluid retention, and forces your heart to work harder, especially if your kidneys are already slowing down with age. I remember a woman named Teresa Collins, age 78, who came into my clinic with swollen ankles and breathlessness that made it hard to walk across her living room. She didn't drink or smoke, and she followed her medication schedule religiously. But when I reviewed her eating habits, she mentioned something with a smile. "I love my fries. Just a little treat twice a week when I meet my sister at the diner." That little habit, one she thought was innocent, was enough to keep her body in a low-grade state of inflammation. Her blood pressure had slowly climbed over the past year. Her ankles held on to fluid, and her breathing was shallow. We made a small switch. No more deep-fried fries. Instead, she began roasting sliced sweet potatoes at home, tossed in olive oil and herbs. Within 3 weeks, her swelling eased. Her pressure dropped. Her breathing felt freer. "It's amazing what something so small can do," she told me. And she was right. That's the truth. So many people overlook. It's not always about the big choices. It's the little ones, the foods we eat week after week without thinking, that shape the health of our heart. French fries aren't just a treat. For older adults, they can be a trigger for rising blood pressure, for kidney strain, for stiffening arteries. This doesn't mean you need to give up every food you enjoy. It means making choices that respect your body's needs as they are today, not as they were 20 years ago. You can still enjoy something savory and crispy. Just bake or roast your vegetables. Season them with garlic, paprika, or rosemary. Choose oils that support your heart instead of attacking it. It's not about restriction, it's about protection. And while oil-fried foods pose one danger to your heart, there's another kind of heat that can be just as risky. It doesn't come from the fryer, but from the spice rack, the kind that lights up your tongue but can also spike your blood pressure and stir up trouble deep inside your arteries. Let's talk about that next. 2. Red chili peppers. The fiery ingredient that's quietly fueling your heart's downfall. Spice adds excitement to food. For many older adults, a little heat on the tongue brings back the warmth of good memories. Spicy chili at weekend potlucks, gumbo bubbling away on the stove, or that homemade hot sauce passed from generation to generation. Jalapenos, cayenne, red chili flakes, they don't just add flavor, they add life. For those of us in our 60s, 70s, and beyond, they often feel like a small way to keep things exciting, to hold on to the energy of our younger years. But here's what's often missed. As we grow older, the body that once welcomed spice without hesitation becomes more sensitive. And what was once a harmless thrill can now quietly strain your heart with every bite. Red chili peppers, cayenne, and other hot spices all contain capsaicin, the compound responsible for their signature burn. In small amounts, capsaicin has its benefits. It can mildly ease pain or boost your metabolism, but it also stimulates your sympathetic nervous system. That's the part of your body responsible for what's known as the fight-or-flight response. When activated, it causes a release of adrenaline, speeds up your heartbeat, tightens your blood vessels, and raises your blood pressure. In a younger, more resilient body, those shifts usually come and go without much issue. But in an aging cardiovascular system that's weathered years of wear, perhaps from hypertension, cholesterol, or simply time, the effect can be more dangerous. The arteries may not expand and contract as easily, the heart may take longer to settle down. And if it's already under stress, those little bursts of adrenaline from spicy meals can trigger palpitations, arrhythmias, or sudden blood pressure spikes. Let me tell you about Raymond, a 76-year-old retired mechanic from Louisiana. He was a steady man, clear-eyed, good sense of humor, never missed a morning walk. But over a few months, he began noticing spells of dizziness and a strange flutter in his chest after dinner. His EKG didn't show anything too concerning at first, just a few irregular beats here and there. But when we placed him on a monitor to track his heart for 48 hours, we saw a clear pattern. Every time he ate something spicy, usually around lunch or dinner, his heart rate jumped, his blood pressure followed, and his recovery slowed. Raymond, like so many seniors, was seasoning with the same habits he'd always used. Crushed red pepper in his soup, cayenne in his eggs, jalapenos chopped into his greens. He wasn't doing anything wrong. He just didn't know his heart couldn't handle spice the way it used to. We didn't take away his love for food. Instead, we swapped heat for richness. He started cooking with smoked paprika, garlic, thyme, and a little citrus. Instead of reaching for the hot sauce, he leaned into depth and warmth. Within a few weeks, the fluttering stopped. The dizziness eased. His blood pressure stabilized, and more importantly, he felt steady again. Raymond told me something I still think about. I thought I needed the heat to feel alive. But now I realize I just need to feel well. That's the truth so many of us miss. The goal isn't to take joy off the plate. It's to protect the very body that allows us to enjoy life in the first place. Our hearts change as we age. They need more care, more attention, and a little more respect with every year. A dish doesn't need to burn your mouth to be satisfying. It can be bold without being fiery. Because if something as simple as a teaspoon of cayenne can overstimulate your nervous system and raise your blood pressure, imagine what could happen when a so-called natural remedy begins thinning your blood too much, especially when combined with medication or age-related changes. Let's move into that next. It's something every senior needs to understand, and it may be sitting right there in your spice rack. If you're still watching and learning from this, comment number 1 below to let me know you're with me. Let's keep going. There's more to protect and more to gain. 3. Raw garlic. When nature's medicine turns against your heart, garlic has been part of our kitchens and home remedies for generations. Whether it was stirred into Sunday stews, crushed into sauces, or steeped in tea during cold season, it's a food we've come to trust, especially for those of us who were raised to believe that nature often knows best. For many older adults, it's more than flavor, it's tradition, it's care. It's a quiet form of protection passed down from parents and grandparents, and truthfully, garlic does have benefits. Its natural compounds, including allicin, can support circulation, ease mild inflammation, and may even offer modest heart protective effects. But as we age, especially after 60, our body no longer processes even familiar foods the same way. Garlic, when eaten raw, is incredibly potent. And for seniors on heart medications, that strength can become a hidden risk. I think often of Lorraine, a 78-year-old retired librarian from Kentucky. She was thoughtful, careful with her diet, and did her best to stay active. Her cholesterol was well managed, and she had been on a baby aspirin regimen for several years following a mild heart episode. But over a few months, Lorraine started noticing dizzy spells first, when she stood up, then sometimes just sitting quietly with a book. She brushed it off, until one afternoon she fainted while watering her plants. Thankfully, her neighbor saw and helped her get to the hospital. Her lab results showed something subtle, but serious. Her inner levels were elevated. That meant her blood was clotting too slowly, dangerously so. When we reviewed her routine, medications, and diet, one habit stood out. Every morning, she ate 1 or 2 raw garlic cloves, crushed and chased with a sip of warm lemon water. She had been doing this for years. Her sister swore by it for blood pressure. What Lorraine didn't realize, and what so many well-meaning older adults don't either, is that raw garlic doesn't simply thin the blood. It can amplify the effects of blood-thinning medications. When combined with aspirin, Plavix, or warfarin, the risk doesn't just increase, it multiplies. In younger bodies, the impact may be mild. But in aging systems where the liver filters more slowly, the kidneys work harder, and vessels are more delicate, the consequences can be serious. Internal bleeding, sudden drops in blood pressure, or even brain bleeds can develop without warning. In Lorraine's case, we asked her to pause all raw garlic immediately. We kept garlic in her diet but roasted, or added to dishes where the intensity of the compound was reduced through cooking. Within 2 weeks, her dizziness faded. Within a month, her labs normalized. She told me something that stayed with me. I never would have guessed garlic could knock me off my feet. I thought I was doing the right thing. And that's the heart of the matter. At this stage in life, even the most trusted foods require a second look. Not because they've suddenly become dangerous, but because our bodies have changed. What once protected us can now overwhelm us. Garlic isn't the enemy, but neither is it harmless. Especially not when mixed with medications and the natural changes of aging. This isn't about fear. It's about clarity. It's about understanding that food, while natural, can be powerful, and power needs to be handled with care. If garlic is part of your daily routine, consider how it's prepared. Choose cooked over raw. Avoid taking it alongside blood thinners unless your doctor specifically says it's okay. And always waste-tell your healthcare provider if you're using it regularly. Food traditions are precious. They connect us to our past and to the people we love. But wisdom means knowing how to honor those traditions while protecting our future. Because if a simple clove of garlic, eaten with good intentions, can silently disrupt your heart's balance, imagine what happens when another common vegetable served raw and praised for its vitality carries bacteria your aging immune system can no longer fight off. That's where we're headed next. It's a risk most people overlook, but one every senior needs to know. Let's keep going. 4. Raw sprouts. The innocent crunch that could break a senior's heart. They look fresh, delicate, full of promise. A soft tangle of green nestled in your sandwich, tossed into a salad, or served beside a veggie wrap at your local cafe. For older adults trying to eat clean raw sprouts, whether it's alfalfa, radish, mung bean, or clover seem like the perfect health food, they are light, low in calories, and often praised for their nutrient density. On paper, they look like the ideal addition to a heart-smart meal. But beneath that crisp bite lies a risk many seniors aren't warned about. Raw sprouts may not harm you because of what's inside them nutritionally, but because of what grows around them. The growing conditions for sprouts are ideal for bacteria: warmth, moisture, darkness. It's the same environment that encourages dangerous pathogens like Salmonella, E. coli, and Listeria to flourish. For a healthy younger person, the result of eating contaminated sprouts might be a couple days of digestive upset. But for older adults especially, those with heart conditions, compromised immune systems, or a history of surgery, this kind of exposure can trigger something far more dangerous. I remember a patient named Louis Harmon, a 72-year-old retired paramedic from Colorado. Louis was disciplined. After a stent procedure a few years prior, he turned his lifestyle around. No red meat, low sodium, daily walks with his wife. His meals were mostly plant-based. "I eat like a rabbit," he joked once, proud of how far he'd come. But then came the fatigue. Then a fever. Then a sense that something was off. He couldn't finish his walk one morning, and his heart felt strange. Tests revealed the cause: infective endocarditis, a bacterial infection of the inner lining of his heart. The culprit? Raw sprouts alfalfa. Specifically, he had purchased from his local co-op just a few days before. They were fresh, organic, locally grown. Still, they carried Listeria bacteria, and that tiny exposure led to a full-blown bloodstream infection. Louis spent 3 weeks in the hospital on IV antibiotics and another 2 months recovering at home. His arteries weren't the problem. His willpower wasn't the issue. It was one well-intentioned sandwich. This is what aging quietly changes. The immune system isn't as sharp. The gut becomes more permeable. Recovery takes longer. What your body once brushed off now settles in and creates damage before you even feel it. And if you've had a pacemaker, artificial valve, or prior cardiac infection, the risk is even higher. These devices and conditions make it easier for bacteria to take hold and much harder for the body to fight back. So does this mean sprouts should be off the menu forever? Not necessarily. But how they're prepared matters more than ever. When you cook sprouts, whether you lightly steam them, toss them in a stir-fry, or stir them into a warm soup, you reduce the risk significantly. Cooking kills off harmful bacteria while preserving much of the crunch and flavor that makes sprouts enjoyable. And when dining out, don't be afraid to ask questions. Ask whether the sprouts are raw or cooked. Ask to leave them off the dish if you're not sure. That small decision could save you from days or weeks of unnecessary strain on your heart and immune system. What we need to remember is this: fresh doesn't always mean safe, and natural doesn't always mean harmless. The aging body has different rules, and honoring those rules isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Louis told me during one of our follow-ups, "I used to train rookies to walk into chaos without fear. But now I know, it's not the big things, it's the little ones that can get you. A handful of greens almost took me out." His story isn't meant to scare, it's meant to remind. Awareness protects, simplicity heals, and adjusting your habits with care is the most loving thing you can do for your future. Because if a delicate sprout can create this much trouble, what happens when a common vegetable seemingly safe starts interacting with your heart medication and throwing your balance off completely? That's what we'll explore next. Stay with me. 5. When healthy vegetables turn harmful, the hidden danger of food and medication interactions. We've heard it all: our lives eat your vegetables. They're good for you. And for the most part, that's true. But after 60, the story becomes more complicated, especially if you're on heart medications. Because no one talks about what isn't printed on food labels or mentioned in glossy nutrition articles, that even the healthiest vegetables can interfere with the drugs keeping you alive. It's not that vegetables are suddenly bad, it's that your body changes, and the way it handles food, medication, and nutrients becomes more delicate with each passing year. Your liver, which helps process medications, slows down. Your kidneys, which flush out excess substances, don't work as efficiently. Even your stomach acid changes, which affects how both nutrients and medications are absorbed. Now imagine tossing in a morning grapefruit, a kale smoothie, or a big bowl of Brussels sprouts, things that seem healthy without realizing the effect they may have. It doesn't sound like a big deal, but for your heart, it could quietly create dangerous imbalances. Let me tell you about someone who lived through this. Her name is Deborah Klein, a 74-year-old retired art teacher from Connecticut. Deborah was vibrant. She walked her neighborhood each morning, painted in the afternoons, and had recently taken a renewed interest in healthy cooking. She was managing mild heart failure and atrial fibrillation with 3 medications: a beta blocker, an ACE inhibitor, and a low-dose blood thinner. Everything was stable until she started experiencing waves of fatigue and moments of confusion. She came into my office worried that her medications were failing. Her blood pressure was unusually low. Her heart rate was lower than it should have been. But when we looked at her medication logs, nothing had changed. Then we reviewed her diet. Deborah had started every morning with a glass of fresh grapefruit juice. She loved the taste, and she'd read it was good for cholesterol. She also began making large salads full of kale and raw Brussels sprouts, thinking she was giving her heart extra support. But here's what many seniors and far too few doctors understand deeply enough. Grapefruit contains a compound that blocks an important liver enzyme called CYP3A4. This enzyme is what helps your body break down many medications, including drugs that control blood pressure and heart rhythm. When grapefruit shuts that enzyme down, medications linger in the body, building up to levels that become dangerous. That's what was happening to Deborah. Medications weren't failing, they were becoming too strong. At the same time, the cruciferous vegetable scale, Brussels sprouts, broccoli were adding large, irregular amounts of vitamin K to her diet. And vitamin K, while important for bone health, can interfere with blood thinners like warfarin, making it harder to keep blood clotting levels stable. Deborah's body was being pulled in opposite directions. Her heart medications were working overtime, while her diet was quietly pushing against them. It wasn't intentional, and it certainly wasn't reckless. She was trying to do the right thing, but the good choices weren't aligned with her medications. We didn't eliminate her favorite foods. We simply adjusted them. She cut back grapefruit juice to once a week and switched to berries in the mornings. We spread out her cruciferous veggies across the week and kept her vitamin K intake consistent, not too high, not too low. Within a few weeks, the dizziness disappeared. Her blood pressure returned to normal. She told me, "I didn't know healthy foods could make me feel so off. I thought I was helping myself." That's the takeaway here. It's not that vegetables are bad, it's that they must work in harmony with your medications and your aging body. And the danger isn't in the food itself, it's in the interaction. And for older adults, that interaction can mean the difference between stability and hospitalization. If you're managing a heart condition, don't overhaul your diet without checking in. Bring a list of your daily foods to your next doctor's appointment, especially if you eat a lot of leafy greens, citrus fruits, or herbal teas. These small details matter far more than most people realize. Because you've worked hard to take care of your heart, don't let a silent food-medication clash unravel all that progress. And if that's what food can do inside the bloodstream, what happens when certain vegetables begin physically expanding inside your body, pressing against your lungs, your stomach, even your heart? That's what we'll look at next. Stay with me. 6. Raw cabbage. The healthy vegetable that's quietly pressuring your heart and lungs. On the surface, raw cabbage seems like the ideal choice for anyone trying to eat clean. It's budget-friendly, packed with fiber, low in calories, and found everywhere from backyard barbecues in the form of coleslaw to deli counters and trendy health food bowls. For many older adults looking to improve their diet, raw cabbage feels like a smart, sensible pick. But as with so many things in aging, there's more to the story. What most seniors don't realize is that raw cabbage, while technically healthy, can quietly create stress for your heart and lungs, especially as your body begins to change in ways you don't always feel right away. As we move into our 60s, 70s, and beyond, the digestive system doesn't work like it once did. The muscles of the gut move food more slowly. Gas doesn't clear as easily. The stomach may take longer to empty. You might notice this in small ways: more bloating after meals, a tight feeling in the upper belly, or even a sense of shortness of breath. These aren't just signs of getting older. They're signals that your digestive rhythm has changed. Now, consider raw cabbage. It belongs to a group of foods high in what are called FODMAPs, fermentable carbohydrates, that tend to produce gas when they're broken down in the intestines. In younger, faster-moving digestive systems, this fermentation process is usually harmless, maybe a little gassy, but short-lived. In older adults, though, that gas can build up and create enough internal pressure to make you feel uncomfortably full or worse. It's not just bloating. In some cases, that trapped gas expands upward, pressing against the diaphragm. And when that happens, it reduces your lungs' ability to fully expand. That tightness in your chest after a meal, that shortness of breath you blame on the weather or age, it could be your food literally crowding your lungs from the inside. I think of Leonard Briggs, a 75-year-old retired truck driver from Missouri. He came to me with concerns about his breathing. He'd feel winded after meals and described a persistent tightness in his chest. His heart tests came back clean. His lungs looked fine on imaging, but something still wasn't right. So we dug deeper into his day-to-day life. Leonard had taken up healthier eating since retirement. One habit he was especially proud of? A big cabbage salad every afternoon, raw, shredded, dressed with vinegar and oil. Feels light, tastes good, he told me. But for his slower-moving gut and slightly stiffened heart muscle, that raw cabbage wasn't refreshing. It was overwhelming. The gas it created pushed upward, compressing his lungs and making his mild heart condition harder to manage. It was mimicking the signs of a cardiac event without being one. Still, the risk was real. We didn't tell Leonard to stop eating cabbage altogether. We simply changed how he prepared it. Lightly sautéing or steaming the cabbage softened the tough fibers and dramatically reduced the FODMAP content. Within a few days of switching to cooked cabbage, his symptoms eased. "Doc," he said, "I had no idea a salad could make it hard to breathe. I thought I was doing everything right." And 40. And he was trying. That's what matters. This is the reality many older adults face. The food you ate with ease at 30 can feel like a challenge at 70. It doesn't mean the food is wrong. It just means your body needs a little help, a little gentleness. Cooking raw vegetables can reduce the strain on your gut. It can ease pressure on your diaphragm, and it can give your heart the space it needs to do its job without added burden. So if you notice discomfort after meals, especially after eating raw vegetables like cabbage, kale, or broccoli, don't ignore it. That tight belly, that shallow breath, that's your body asking for a different approach. You can still enjoy your favorite foods, but after 60, it's time to prepare them with caregiving, your body the support it needs to digest and function without strain. Because if raw cabbage can cause that much internal pressure, imagine what happens when your vegetables come from a can, soaked in sodium, quietly pushing your blood pressure higher with every bite. That's where we're going next. Stay with me. 7. Canned vegetables. The healthy food sneaking salt into your heart. For generations, canned vegetables have been a symbol of comfort and practicality. They've filled pantries across the country, ready to be opened and served with little fuss. Whether it's corn alongside meatloaf, green beans with mashed potatoes, or peas mixed into a casserole, they've long been considered a simple, healthy choice, especially for older adults who want to eat well without complication. But beneath that convenience lies a quiet danger, one that often goes unnoticed until the damage is done. That danger is sodium. Most canned vegetables are preserved in a salty solution designed to extend shelf life and preserve flavor. What many seniors don't realize is that the sodium packed into each serving may be doing slow, steady harm, particularly to the heart. The problem isn't in the vegetable itself, but in how it's been processed. As the body ages, the kidneys lose some of their ability to regulate sodium efficiently. At the same time, blood vessels become less flexible, and the heart begins to feel the strain of even small imbalances. When you regularly consume foods high in salt, even if they come from a can labeled vegetables, your body retains more fluid. That extra fluid raises your blood pressure, increases your heart's workload, and puts you on a path toward heart failure, stroke, or chronic swelling in the lower limbs. I think of Roy Thompson, an 83-year-old widower from Georgia, who had always taken pride in his simple routine. He cooked at home, avoided fast food, and didn't snack on chips or processed treats. "I just eat my beans and carrots from a can," he told me. "Always have." But Roy's blood pressure told another story. Despite taking 2 medications, his numbers stayed high. His ankles were often swollen, and he'd catch his breath after walking up his porch steps. We tried different combinations of medication, but nothing seemed to help until I asked him to bring in some of the labels from his pantry. That's when the issue became clear. Each can of vegetables contained over 500 milligrams of sodium per serving. But Roy wasn't eating a serving. He was eating the entire can. Every night. That added up to more than 1,000 milligrams from just one side dish without even counting what came from the rest of his meal. We made 2 simple adjustments. First, he began choosing no salt-added versions of the same vegetables. Second, he got in the habit of rinsing all canned vegetables under cold water before cooking, an easy step that can reduce sodium by up to 40%. We also added more frozen vegetables into his routine, which typically contain no added salt and hold more of their natural nutrients. 6 weeks later, Roy's blood pressure had dropped. The swelling in his legs eased, and with his cardiologist's support, we were able to reduce one of his medications. "I thought I was doing everything right," he told me, shaking his head. "Never knew the salt was hiding in my vegetables." His story is one I've heard many times. Seniors trying their best to make healthy choices, only to be led astray by outdated habits and unclear food labels. Canned vegetables may seem like a reliable option, but unless you're reading the label closely, you may be adding far more sodium to your diet than your heart can safely handle. Here's what I tell every senior in my care. Don't assume a vegetable is good for you just because it comes in a can. Read the sodium content. Look for products labeled no salt added or low sodium, and rinse them before you eat, every time. Better yet, stock your freezer with plain frozen vegetables. They're just as quick to prepare, often more flavorful, and much easier on your heart. You've worked hard to live a full, meaningful life. You deserve meals that nourish you without putting your heart at risk. Sometimes, it's not about eating less, it's about choosing differently. And if sodium can hide so easily in a can of carrots or green beans, quietly pushing your blood pressure higher with every bite, what happens when you go overboard with even the right kinds of vegetables overwhelming your heart and kidneys with volume, not seasoning? That's exactly what we'll explore next. Stay with me. 8. Overdoing heart-healthy veggies. When too much of a good thing becomes a silent threat. We all grew up hearing it. Eat your vegetables. It's a lesson passed from generation to generation, and for good reason. Vegetables provide the nutrients, fiber, and protection that the body needs at any age. But after 60, something changes, not just in the food, but in how your body processes it. And even the healthiest vegetables can become too much if you're not paying attention to balanced medications and the natural shifts that come with aging. This isn't about fear, it's about clarity. I've worked with older adults for more than 30 years, and one of the most common patterns I've seen is this. Seniors trying their absolute best to do the right thing only to unknowingly tax their heart, kidneys, and nervous system. With an overload of good foods, take the case of Mr. Franklin Ellis, a 79-year-old retired music teacher from Pennsylvania. After recovering from a mild heart attack, Franklin made a strong commitment to his health. He cut out processed foods, embraced a mostly plant-based diet, and filled his plate every day with kale, spinach, beets, and sweet potatoes. He was proud of his new lifestyle, and rightly so. But when he came into my clinic for a checkup, something felt off. He looked pale, more tired than expected, and he mentioned feeling weak at times, with occasional dizziness when standing up. We checked his labs, and there it was. Elevated potassium levels, mild kidney stress, and an inconsistent INR, meaning his blood wasn't clotting the way it should. He hadn't changed his medications. He hadn't taken any supplements. It was his diet. Beets and spinach, while filled with beneficial antioxidants, are also high in oxalates natural compounds that can impair kidney function over time, especially in older adults whose filtering systems are already under pressure. Kale and spinach both carry high amounts of vitamin K, which, if eaten in large or inconsistent amounts, can interfere with blood thinners like warfarin. And sweet potatoes, a delicious source of beta-carotene, are also high in potassium, concern for anyone taking ACE inhibitors or certain diuretics. Franklin hadn't done anything wrong. He had simply gone too far in one direction, piling too much of a good thing onto his plate. His body couldn't keep up. Together we made gentle adjustments. He began rotating his greens rather than relying on the same handful each day. We introduced more digestible options like sautéed zucchini, roasted green beans, and cooked carrots vegetables that are kinder to aging kidneys and steadier on the heart. We built a weekly meal rhythm that honored his plant-based goals, but with more moderation and variety. Within a month, his energy returned. His potassium levels dropped into a safe range. His blood pressure evened out, and his dizziness disappeared. "I thought I was doing everything right," he told me. "Turns out I just needed to do it smarter." That's the key. As the body ages, it asks for different things, not less care, but more precision. Digestion slows. Nutrient absorption shifts. Medications interact differently with the foods you eat. And the heart doesn't recover from excess the way it once did. You don't need to stop eating healthy, but you do need to rethink what healthy means for you now. It's not just what you eat, but how much, how often, and in what combination. A bowl of spinach is not dangerous, but eating it every day without regard to your blood thinner might be. Sweet potatoes aren't harmful, but 5 servings a week on top of potassium-rich medications can begin to add up. Your body is still incredibly capable, but it speaks more quietly now. It needs your attention, not your perfection. So if you've been filling your plate with leafy greens, beets, and root vegetables every single day, pause for a moment. Check in with how you feel. Check in with your doctor. Because even the best habits, when done without awareness, can quietly create imbalance. Now that we've explored how too much of a good thing can become a burden, let's take a look at the vegetables that truly support the aging heart. The ones that bring nourishment without overwhelm. The ones that belong on your plate consistently, gently, and wisely. That's where we're headed next. Stay with me. Joe, instead, eat these vegetables that truly support your heart after 60. After a lifetime of steady work, more than 2 billion beats, without pause, your heart has earned something sacred. Respect, not just care, but real, thoughtful attention. Because now, in your 60s, 70s, or 80s, your heart doesn't respond the way it used to. It doesn't need pressure, chaos, or extreme solutions. It needs steadiness. It needs rhythm. And most of all, it needs nourishment that supports its quiet, constant labyrinth food that quietly wears it down. This is where wise vegetable choices make all the difference. Not fads, not the latest headline in a magazine, but foods backed by clinical insight, time-tested science, and the day-to-day experiences of older adults just like you. Let me introduce you to someone who understood this early. Virginia Cole, an 84-year-old retired piano instructor from North Carolina. Virginia had always taken pride in staying proactive about her health. She wasn't in crisis. She didn't want to wait for one. "I just want to feel more steady," she told me. "I want to feel like my body and I are on the same team." We kept her off the roller coaster of new diets and instead focused on vegetables that supported her heart without stressing her digestion, kidneys, or medications. We built a plate rooted in calm, consistency, and balance. First, we started with steamed green beans and tender-cooked broccoli. These are low in sodium, gentle on the gut, and rich in compounds that help reduce inflammation in the arteries, a major contributor to long-term heart strain. Cooking them softened the fiber, making it easier for her body to absorb nutrients without discomfort. Then we added carrots not raw, but roasted until tender or simmered into a stew. Carrots brought natural sweetness and comfort, along with beta-carotene, which plays a role in keeping blood vessels resilient and flexible. More importantly, they helped Virginia cut back on overly processed snacks by satisfying her taste buds with real food. Zucchini followed next. Lightly sautéed with a splash of olive oil and thyme, zucchini was soothing, hydrating, and easy to digest. It's naturally low in potassium and oxalates, which made it a perfect option for someone like Virginia, whose kidney function was starting to show signs of age-related decline. We allowed sweet potatoes too, but in modest portions and always baked or boiled. Rich in fiber and antioxidants, they gave her a source of steady energy without spiking blood sugar or overwhelming her system. One of her favorite additions turned out to be cooked tomatoes. We made simple soups and stews with olive oil and basil. As tomatoes cook, they release lycopene, a powerful antioxidant that helps keep blood vessels open and responsive. It became one of her most comforting meals, especially on cool evenings. Kale returned to her plate as well, but no longer raw. Instead, we lightly sautéed it, served in modest portions, and made sure to monitor her medication levels. That one shift allowed her to enjoy the benefits of greens vitamins, fiber, plant compounds, without risking clotting issues or digestive upset. 3 months later, Virginia came back to see me. Her cheeks looked rosier, her step was lighter. "I feel aligned again," she said. "Not just healthier, but clearer, like I'm finally in step with what my body actually needs, not what I used to think it did." That's what this is really about. Not chasing youth or cutting things out of your life, but learning how to work with your body in its current state with softness, not punishment, with purpose, not fear. Eating well after 60 isn't about doing everything perfectly. It's about doing the right things consistently. It's about making meals that give back, that calm the heart instead of provoking it, that fuel your movement, your memory, and your peace of mind. You don't have to give up the foods you love, but you do need to prepare them in ways that love you back. So now that you know which vegetables nourish without burden, the next step is about weaving that knowledge into your life, your kitchen, your habits, your way of being. Because when your food, your body, and your routine begin to work in harmony, everything changes. Let's talk about how to bring that vision to life one day, one meal, one calm step at a time. You're not running out of time. In fact, this might be the perfect moment to begin again with clarity, wisdom, and a plate full of support. Conclusion: if you've made it this far, then you're already doing something powerful. You're listening, not just to me or to any advice you've heard today, but to yourself. Because tuning into your body, truly listening to it, is the most powerful thing you can do for your health after 60. Your heart is still working, your lungs still draw breath, your mind still forms thoughts, memories, ideas, and every decision you make, what you eat, how you move, what you set aside, and what you welcome in still matters. I've sat with hundreds of older adults over the years. Some arrived burdened with grief. Others worn out from illness or disappointment. Many told me they'd given up. They'd say things like, "I should have taken better care of myself," or "It's too late for me now." But let me be clear, regret is not a medical condition, and the past is not a sentence. Healing at this stage of life doesn't always come from medications or procedures. Often it begins with something much quieter. A shift in intention, a daily habit done with care, a gentle meal made with love, a short walk taken not to chase a goal, but to honor the body that still moves. You've made it through years of change, of raising families, managing careers, showing up for others. You've been strong through sorrow and steady through uncertainty. And now, the most courageous thing you can do might just be to care for yourself as fiercely as you've cared for those around you. Your health doesn't need to be perfect. Your meals don't need to look like magazine covers. Your routines don't have to be complex. They just have to be yours, consistent, thoughtful, respectful of where your body is today. So begin where you are. Change one small thing. Read one label. Choose one better option. Take one slow, nourishing breath. Not out of fear, but out of deep respect for the life you've lived and the time still ahead of you. This next part of your life can be full of clarity, comfort, and steadiness. Not because it's free from challenges, but because it's led with wisdom. Your body has carried you far. It still wants to carry you further. Let's treat it with the care it deserves. And if you ever feel unsure or overwhelmed, just remember, every mindful step you take today is a gift to the version of you who wakes up tomorrow. Let's keep walking this path on peaceful, powerful day at a time. If this message resonated with you, I'd love to hear it. Share one thing you're taking with you and one change you plan to make. And if this video helped, leave a 1 in the comments. If not, feel free to share 0. Your feedback helps guide what we create. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content made just for you. Thanks for being here, and here's to living the rest of your life with strength, clarity, and intention.